So, welcome to chapter 31 of Genesis. Um, this chapter is a little lengthier than the former ones we've been covering. However, I'm going to try to summarize as best as possible. There are some really good connections and observations that is worth highlighting here. But because we've gathered the understanding in the previous chapters, I don't think there is a need to overextend. So hopefully, if everything is straightforward and if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Unmute yourselves or even through the chat, let me know if you need me to slow it down because I do want to cover all of it tonight and I don't want to overextend it, like I said. So having said that, we're going to go ahead. Well, I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 31 well, not in its entirety. I'm going to read verses 1 through, I believe, 21. And that way to break it in two parts. And I will read it myself just to save us some time. Everyone can see my screen, correct? Let me just make sure. Okay, yes. All right, so verse 1. Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has acquired all this wealth. And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable toward him as before. Then the Adon said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not favorable toward me as before, but the Most High of my father has been with me. And you know that all my might I have served your father. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But the Most High did not allow him to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore speckled. And if he said thus, the streaked shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked. So the Most High has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it happened at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. Then the angel of the Most High spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift your eyes now and see. All the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray spotted. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now arise, get out of this land and return to the land of your family. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money. For all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever the Most High has said to you, do it. Then Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. And he carried away all his livestock and all his possessions which he had gained, his acquired livestock which he had gained in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unknown to Laban the Syrian, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. So he fled with all that he had. He arose and crossed the river and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. Okay. So the first part is about him, just as we read, telling his wives, everything he had done and how Laban had dealt with him very wrongly, right? And how basically the Most High is backing him up, and so we see that that both wives agree, and they tell him like, our father has basically sold us to you, and he's taken up all of our money. Basically, they are saying, let's just go. They are okaying for Jacob to flee, to go, right? And now we're going to see in the second half that Laban pursues Jacob after he takes off, but we're not going to read that part right now. I'm going to go ahead and just, oops, what did I do here? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction and then we'll do the connecting precepts with the first part that we just read. So again, Genesis 31, I titled it The Most High Delivers Jacob, because as we just saw, even in the first half, that's basically what's taking place, right? So in this chapter marks a major turning point in Jacob's life. For 20 years, Jacob has lived under Laban. He has been deceived, taken advantage of, and had his wages changed repeatedly. Yet through all of it, the Most High has continued to bless him and protect him. Now, the Most High tells Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. That's in Genesis 31, and we just read it in verse 3. So this takes us right back to Genesis 28 when Jacob was leaving the land for the first time. The Most High had promised him, I am with you and will keep you in all places where you go, for I will not leave you. So we see now 20 years later that Jacob is beginning to see that promise fulfilled. But in Genesis 31 is more than Jacob simply leaving Laban. It is a chapter about deliverance, protection, separation, and the faithfulness of the Most High. And we begin to see something that will become a major pattern in scripture, which is Jacob leaves an oppressive household, his former master pursues him, and the Most High intervenes to protect him. What does that sound like, right? It's it's the picture of the Exodus, straightforward, right? And we later see it even with Messiah later on. Jacob is being brought out of Laban's house and back toward the land of promise, or the promised land, which is basically what took place in the Exodus. So a lot of foreshadowing connections here, but now let's do some connecting precepts with the first part that we just read. Let me just, because I wasn't even able to print out my notes, so I'm going to be reading them from my phone. So with verse 1, where it says, now Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has acquired all his wealth. Connecting with that, let me just move this little thing out of the way. We have, wait, is this the right connections? Guys, give me one quick second because these are not the right connections. Just give me 1 second. Welcome those who came later. I'm just going to paste these really quickly. Sorry about that. Just bear with me. These are the connections from last week. I just noticed I never updated it. Ooh. What am I doing here? Gosh. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Bear with me. Retrieve. All right, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen now. Okay, so again, connecting with that first verse that we just read, we have Psalms 49, verse 16. Do not be afraid when one becomes rich, when the glory of his house is increased. And that's basically what's happening here. Laban is being jealous because of the blessings that the Most High is backing Jacob with. And of course, Laban's sons are the ones that come and tell Jacob what's happening, right? Now, connecting with verse 2, and Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable toward him as before. So we see here that Jacob was able to confirm what Laban's sons were telling him, right? Like he has some type of beef with me, so I'm beginning to see it. And connecting with that, we have Genesis 4:5. But he did not respect Cain and his offering, and Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. That's just to connect. I mean, it has nothing to do with Jacob and Laban, but connecting how the countenance, the change, the switch up, basically in the face, in the appearance, right? The countenance is what it's saying that he could tell by the same way that Cain got angry and his countenance fell, the same way Laban's countenance fell because he was angry, more like jealous with Jacob. Also connecting with verse 2, we have Deuteronomy 28:54. The sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward his brother, toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the rest of his children whom he leaves behind. We also have Genesis. No, that's connecting with verse 3. So we have verse 3. Then the Adon said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you. Now, connecting with that, we just have some connections in the same book of Genesis. Genesis 28, verses 15, then 20 to 21. And this is recapping, obviously, when he first came, when he first left his people, his land to go find his wives, right? So, behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. So, right there, we're beginning to see the fulfillment of that promise back in chapter 28, right? For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and keep me in this way that I am going, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then the Adon shall be my God. Genesis 32:9. Then Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Adon who said to me, return to my country and to your family, and I will deal well with you. So again, just this is already next week, chapter 32, but we're going to see the fulfillment of this promise that started in chapter 28. Connecting verse 5 now. And said to them, I see your father's countenance, that word again, countenance, that it is not favorable toward me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. In other words, he didn't let Laban's countenance or Laban's look or even treatment toward him make him nervous, right? He said, it doesn't matter because the Most High is with me, so it no matter. So connecting with verse 5, we have a few connections here. Genesis 31, verses 2 to 3. And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable toward him as before. That's just the same within the same chapter. We have Genesis 21:22. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, May God, the Most High is with you in all that you do. Genesis 28:13. And behold, the Adon stood above it all and said, I am the Elohim of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants. So we see this promise stems back to Abraham. Verse 15. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. And again, the same chapter, I'm not going to read it, but we see a lot of connections within chapter 31. And then we have Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And if you've ever read the book of Isaiah, you know that that's a future promise for his people covenant, his people Israel, right? That he is saying, fear not, for I am with you. But that same promise stems back to the same covenant that he told Abraham. And what a beautiful chapter to us as a reminder also that we are part of that promise. That when he gave that promise to Abraham, he saw us in the future. And that applies to us today as his people. As well as Hebrews 13, verse 5, lastly connecting with this verse, let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And obviously the context of this is that don't worry about the things of this life or this world, because it doesn't matter what maybe you don't physically have yet or anything that you are praying for that hasn't been fulfilled. Is almost like a reminder, like don't worry about that, just continue to do good works, and you know that your father has already promised you that he would never leave you. So always such a beautiful reminder. Connecting with verse 6, we have, and you know that with all my might I have served your father. And again, a reminder that he was doing the righteous thing, even though he didn't really have to. He served him with all his might. So he served him. He was like a testimony of what it is to actually be a decent person, right? And so, connecting with this verse, we have Genesis 30, verse 29 from last week. So, Jacob said to him, meaning Laban, you know how I have served you and how your livestock has been with me. We have later on in the same chapter confirming Jacob telling Laban again, these 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was, and the day by the in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your two daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Genesis 29:25. So it came to pass in the morning that behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? So this is just backtracking to see where the deception began, which was originally with deceiving him with the daughters, right? Giving him one and for the other one the one that he had actually requested. Um, Hold on, let me see, guys. This is connecting still with verse 31, 41. Sorry, I have like a mess here with my notes. Oh, is that I'm repeating the same? Okay, I'm not reading that one again. So connecting with verse 7, where it says, yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but the Most High did not allow him to hurt me. So connecting with verse 7, we have Numbers 14:22, because all these men who have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice. And again, this has nothing to do with what happened with Jacob being deceived by Laban. I just want to clarify that. However, we see that the Most High was also put to the test 10 times by the Israelites that were rebellious in the wilderness, which is interesting because it's the same amount of times that Laban was been explains he was been put to test 10 times while he was under the care of Laban. We also see in Nehemiah 4, verse 12. So it was when the Jews who dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, from whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. Again, we see the same exact thing. They told us 10 times. So maybe like part of their culture to maybe exaggerate, but we know in the case of Laban, it was indeed 10 times, right? But or maybe it was just like not by coincidence that these, it continued to be the Jews. This is now the house of Judah, meaning the Jews now when they come back to the land, and we see them also using the same ver basically explanation of how they were told 10 times, right? And we also see Job, this connects with verse 7. Um, I'm skipping things here. Hold on. We have Nehemiah. Okay, yes, then Job. Sorry, guys. Is that I don't have the paper with me, so I'm going by my phone and everything looks like mixed up together. Yes, we do have connecting with still verse 7, Job 19:3. These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me. And again, the times of Job, in case you didn't know, this was even before I know the book of Job in the Bible is placed like I want to say it's kind of like it's definitely after the Torah, the five first books, right? And I want to say it's even after the history books, some of the history books. But we know that the times of Job has been confirmed that it was actually during or like in between Abraham and Moses during that time. So Job, it's from the beginning. And we see the same language being used in Job. Zechariah 8:23. Thus says the Adon of hosts, in those days 10 men from every language of the nation shall grasp the sleeve of a Jewish man, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that the Most High is with you. Genesis 15:1. After these things, the word of the Adon came to Abram in a vision, saying, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield and exceedingly great reward. And again, both Zechariah, which is a prophetic book of basically the future, and meaning the end times. And then we see in Genesis 15:1, again confirming that he would be with us, right? Genesis 26 as well. And the Most High said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. And we see here the protection, obviously, of our Abba. Genesis 31, verse 29. It's actually in the same chapter, but it is in my power to do you harm. But the Most High of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob, neither good or nor bad. And we're going to read that now when we read the second half, but this is Laban speaking. And what we see here is his protection, literally his protection over Jacob. And Laban had to acknowledge it. Job, again, the book of Job, chapter 1, verse 10. Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. And this is obviously when Satan goes and asks permission of the Most High to go and test Job. But he is bringing to his attention, like, you have basically put a hedge of protection around him and blessed him. Psalms 37, verse 28. For the Adon loves justice and does not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever, but the descendants of the wicked shall be cut off. Eesh. But we do see the promise of our Father for those who actually abide by him, right? Those who, like it says it very clear here, those who love justice. How beautiful. Psalms 105, verse 14. He permitted no one to do them wrong. Yes, he rebuked kings for their sakes. And lastly, no, that's it. Now we're going to go connect verse 8. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore speckled. And if he said thus, the streaked shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked. And just confirming with what we studied last time, a recap from chapter 30, we have Genesis 30:32. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. And basically, this is what happened last chapter we read, right? And now we see in chapter 31 that basically that everything that what's it? Jacob, not Laban, that Jacob said these will be my wages, the Most High came and doubled it. You know, like if he said your wages were the streaked, then they bore streaked. If they said, and if he said they were the speckled, then they bore speckled. Basically, that's what he's saying here. Then verse 9. So the Most High has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. So basically, he did a plot twist here. Laban thought he was going to get away with murder by deceiving Jacob once again. But the Most High himself removes his livestock and gives it to Jacob. How? By actually having his speckled, streaked, or whatever, just, have more, like double the amount. Verse 10, no, 11, where it says, then the angel of the Most High spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And I'm just going to read through all Genesis examples of this. Recapping through Genesis 16, verses 7 through 11. Now the angel of the Adon found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way of Shur. And this was Hagar, by the way. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Adon said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Then the angel of the Adon said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly so that they shall not be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Adon said to her, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Adon has heard your affliction. And then another example, Genesis 22, 11 and 15. But the angel of the Adon called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, here I am. Then the angel of the Adon called to Abraham a second time out of heaven. And again in this chapter, verse 13, I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. And what God is this if not the Adon Messiah himself, right? Now arise, get out of this land and return to the land of your family. And we also have Genesis 48:16. Then the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. This is interesting because this is later on Jacob when he's older blessing his children before he dies. And we see that this angel who has redeemed him from all evil is nonetheless by the same one who came to Abraham and the same one who came when he did the when he encountered him when he did the vow to Jacob, right? So it's the same one is Messiah from the very beginning, all throughout, right? And it says, let my name be named upon them and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And that's again the blessing that he gives his children. Now connecting verse 12. And he said, lift your eyes now and see all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled and gray spotted, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. So we see the Most High purposely, right, reproduces so that he has the blessing, connecting with verse 12. Genesis 31:42, unless the Most High of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty handed. But the Most High has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Exodus 3:7, and the Adon said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And this is just such a beautiful reminder that he always sees. He might not answer right away, but he hears the oppression of the people. He hears the afflicted. He hears our cries. We see it with Hannah. We see it with so many people and women in scriptures when they don't even have the words to say, but he hears their hearts as they cry out. Psalms 139, verse 3, you comprehend my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Ecclesiastes 5, verse 8, if you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter, for high official watches over high official, and higher officials are over them. And that's just confirming that he does see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion, right? Genesis 31:13. So Genesis 31:13 is actually from the Septuagint. So let's read how it renders here in the canon. It says, I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now arise, get out of this land and return to the land of your family. In the Septuagint, it renders as following. I am the God that appeared to thee, meaning to you, in the place of God, where thou anoint. Let me just read it normal. Where you anointed a pillar to me and vowed to me there a vow. Now then arise and depart of this land, depart into the land of your nativity, and I will be with you. So why am I reading this from the Septuagint? Because we see a bit of a better understanding here. He is saying that he is the God that appeared to you in the place of the Most High. You know how they group gods together, which is why I like to say the Adon and the Most High. The Most High is the Father, right? And we see that I am the Adon that appeared to you in the place of the Father, in other words, of the Most High, where you anointed the pillar to me. Because what do we know in scriptures? We know that the Father gave authority to the Son, right? The Son later says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, right? We also see in Exodus that he says, I'm sending this angel, I will put my name in him. Just listen to his voice and obey him. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but what I'm trying to point out by bringing the Septuagint is that there are two. There was never one. We see the angel of God is the Messiah. And that's what I want to like for you guys to see here. When he says, I am the God of Bethel, it is the Messiah in the representation of the Father. The whole anointing of the pillar to him and making a vow to the Messiah, it's because he was sent from the Father to lead his people out, beginning with Abraham. Well, beginning with all of them from the beginning, but in this case, Abraham, because he uses Abraham to do the entire redemption of all humanity. And so, right? I just want to make sure you guys see the distinction there. Also connecting with with verse 13, we have Genesis 28:16 through 22. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Adon is in this place, and I did not know it. Again, this is Messiah. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of the Most High, and this is the gate of heaven. Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name in that city had been Luz previously. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if the Most High will be with me and keep me in this way that I am going, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then the Adon shall be my God, meaning Messiah shall be my God. And why do I want to say and point out to this? Because that is why later in Exodus you see the very first commandment is you shall have no other gods besides me. Gods, in case you haven't been studying with us together, you have to understand that what does God mean? God is an angel. Basically the word God is angel, which is why there's fallen angels, right? Gods and fallen gods. That's why there's worship to other gods. They are mighty ones. They are eternal ones, sons of the Most High. But the Most High gives all the authority to the firstborn, the Son, right? He gives authority to him, which is why all the other nations had a God. Israel had the one God, Messiah. And so he says there, Jacob is saying there, then the Adon shall be my God. He chooses his God at that point. Who is his God? Messiah. Messiah, in representation, obviously, of the Father, has been given the authority to rule over Israel. I hope you guys understand that distinction. Yes, Amen. Um, I'm saying amen to Alina, and she's saying, come on, preach it, sister. So again, once again, there's a huge distinction there that I want to point out, which is why I'm bringing the Septuagint. And then lastly, connecting with verse 13, well, actually, not lastly, I have a couple more. We also have Genesis 35, 1, 6, and 15. Then the Adon said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make an altar there to the Most High, who appeared to, or more to the Adon, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. So Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. Verse 15. And Jacob called the name of the place where the Adon spoke with him, Bethel. Genesis 31, verse 3. Again, and then the Adon said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers. Again, I will be with you. Genesis 32, verse 9. Then Jacob said, oh, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Adon who said to me, return to your country and to your family, and I will deal well with you. He is talking about one God that was given authority to do all this. And again, this is our Mashiach. Genesis, let me see, we are connecting still verse 13. And we have, no, that's it. Now connecting verse 14. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? In other words, they're not doubting it. They're being sarcastic. Like, there's nothing here for us. And you see the context in verse 15 where he says, are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money. So they're a little upset at their father, right? So they're saying, forget our father, let's just go. In other words. So connecting with verse 14, and actually I'm going to connect 14 and 15 both. We have Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. In this case, we have more than one flesh, right? Because they have more than one wife, but y'all get the point. The wives go where the husband goes. Genesis 29:15, 20, 23, and 27. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be? So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love that he had for her. Now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Fulfill her week, for we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve me still another 7 years. And this is just again recapping how the whole deception happened. Nehemiah 5, verse 8, also connecting with verse 15. And I said to them, according to our ability, we have redeemed our Jewish brethren who were sold to the nations. Now, indeed, will you even sell your brethren, or should they be sold to us? Then they were silenced and found nothing to say. And I'm not going to get into the context of that part of Nehemiah because that's a lot of historical. I would have to tell you when they were taken into captivity into Babylon, came from the pagan nation, and then back to the promised land. But the whole point of bringing the scripture in here is the selling, them considered being sold. It's the same way that Rachel and Leah both felt that they were being sold for money, basically. Genesis 31:16, actually, that's from the Septuagint also. So I'm going to read how it renders here, and then we're going to read it in the Septuagint. I don't remember exactly why I added this, but we'll see it together. In the canon, it reads, for all these riches which the Most High has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever the Most High has said to you, do it. And again, this is Leah and Rachel telling Jacob. But let me see how that renders in the Septuagint, verse 16. Oops. All the wealth and the glory which the Most High has taken from our father, it shall be ours and our children's. Now then, do whatsoever the Most High has said to thee. Interesting, I see it now, because in the canon we see, verse 16, we're here, we see that it just says he has taken from the riches the Most High has taken from our father are really ours, right? In the Septuagint, it's just saying all the wealth and the glory which the Most High has taken from our father, it shall be ours and our children's. So we do see a little bit of distinction there. In the canon, it's saying our father took what belonged to us. In the Septuagint, it gives more clarity that they will be given back to them by the Most High, basically. And that is actually what ends up happening. So I like that different understanding in the Septuagint. So verse 18, where it says, and he carried away all his livestock and all his possessions which he had gained, his acquired livestock which he had gained in Padam-aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Basically, he's packing up to go back to Isaac. So connecting with verse 18, just going back in scriptures when that was happening. Genesis 17, verse 8. Also, I will give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession. I will be their God. Genesis 33, verse 18. Then Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. When he came from Padam-aram, and he pitched his tent before the city. This is obviously, we're going to get to that, but we see a future of what happens. He actually goes back to the land, as well as Genesis 35:27. Then Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, or Kirjath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had dwelt. So we see there the reunification a few chapters later. Connecting with verse 19. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. I forgot to bring in the Jasher scripture, though I mentioned it in the slides, but I want to add understanding on this because in Jasher, we see the reason why Rachel does that. But connecting with this verse 19, we have Genesis, same chapter, verses 30 and 34. And now you have surely gone because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? This is Laban speaking. Verse 34, now Rachel had taken the household idols, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. Genesis 35, verse 2. And Jacob said to his household, and to all who were with him, put away the foreign gods that are among you, purify yourselves and change your garments. This is beautiful. We're going to get really into this when we get to this chapter. But here we see clearly he knew there were false idols, foreign gods, right? And idols among the people. And it was time to purify and change, which is foreshadowing of what we are to do when we come out of her, my people, right? When we come out of spiritual Egypt, spiritual Babylon. Judges 17, verse 5, the man Micah had a shrine and made an ephod and household idols, and he consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. And we're going to see, if you guys have read through Judges, you see how just corrupt his people became. Insanely corrupt, going after other idols. Judges 18:7 again. So the 5 men departed and went to Laish. They saw the people who were there, how they dwelt safely in the matter of the Sidonians, quiet and secure. There were no rulers in the land who might put them to shame for anything. They were far from the Sidonians, and they had no ties with anyone. First Samuel 19:13. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed, put a cover of goat's hair for his head, and covered it with clothes. Interesting. It's very similar than the witchcraft that's been practiced today, right? Nothing new under the sun. Hosea 3:4. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred pillar, without ephod or teraphim. And we know that the point of that was because of all the detestable idols that they were worshiping. We also see, connecting with now verse 21, so he fled with all that he had. He arose and crossed the river and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. Just a few connections here. Genesis 46:28. Then he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way of Goshen, and they came to the land of Goshen. That's just to point out once again that this is where he was headed in Gilead. 2 Kings 12:17, Hazael, king of Syria, went up and fought against Gath and took it. Then Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. Luke 9:51 and 53, now it came to pass, when the time had come for him to be received up, that he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. But they did not receive him because his face was set for the journey to Jerusalem. And again, Jerusalem, we know the connections with Goshen. It's the same land. Now, we have done all the connections up to verse 21. If there's no questions up to this point, let me just check the chat really quick. If there's no questions up to this point, we will continue with the second half, which I don't see any. All right, so I will read. Verse 22. And Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. Then he took his brethren with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But the Most High had come to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said to him, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. So Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? That you have stolen away unknown to me, and carried away my daughters like captives taken with sword. Why did you flee away secretly and steal away from me, and not tell me? For I might have sent you away with joy and songs, with timbrel and harp. Yeah, right. Verse 28. And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. It is in my power to do you harm, but the Most High of your fathers spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. And now you have surely gone because you greatly longed for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Then Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. With whomever you find your gods, do not let him live. By the way, he had no idea at this point that Rachel was the one that had his gods, okay? Meaning her father's gods. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have of yours and take it with you. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. Then he went out to Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is with me. And he searched but did not find the household idols. Again, the manner of women is that she supposedly had her period. So she used that as an excuse to not get up and him to find the idols. So she kept the idols with her, right? So verse 36, then Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so haughtily pursued me? Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. In the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your two daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the Most High of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. The Most High has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock. All that you see is mine. But what can I do this day to these my daughters or to their children whom they have borne? Now therefore, come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Then Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. Laban called it Jigar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore, its name was called Galid. Also Mizpah, because he said, may the Adon watch between you and me when we are absent one from another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, the Most High is witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, here is this heap, and here is this pillar, which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. Okay. Let's connect. Actually, let me go back. Let's connect a few verses here. I'm going to try to go through these quickly. Verse 22. And Laban was told on the third day, so many third day connections, by the way, that Jacob had fled. We have Genesis 46, 2 and 4. No. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Can't find this now. Verse 22. Sorry, Exodus. Exodus 14, verse 5. My bad. Now it was told the king of Egypt that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this? That we have let Israel go from serving us. And again, Laban is not the Pharaoh, but this is almost like a foreshadow of that, because as we see the Pharaoh follows the Israelites when they had left, we see Laban doing the same. Connecting with verse 13, not 13, 23. Then he took his brethren with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey. Again, I love to see the third day and the 7 day connection all throughout scriptures, and they always go hand in hand. I don't believe it's by coincidence. But anyway, then he took his brethren with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. This is Laban, right? So connecting with verse 24. We have a few here. Genesis 13:8. So Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. And again, that's exactly what Laban should have done with Jacob, but we see the strife. He goes after him, right? Genesis 20, verse 3. But the Most High came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, indeed, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. As well as in verse 29 in this chapter, it is in my power to do you harm. But the Most High of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. We also see it in chapter 46, verses 2 to 4. Then the Most High spoke to Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. So he said, I am the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. We know this is later on when they go and dwell in Egypt before the Exodus, right? Job 33:15. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men while slumbering on their beds. That's just a poetic way of saying that when you are in a deep sleep, that's when the Most High comes and talks to you in dreams and in visions, right? Matthew 1, verse 20. But while he thought about these things, behold, an angel of the Adon appeared to him in a dream, and this was to Joseph, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take to you Mary your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And you guys should all know that story, right? Also connecting, we have Genesis 24, verse 50. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing comes from the Adon. We cannot speak to you either good or bad. Genesis 31, verse 7 and 29. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but the Most High did not allow him to hurt me. Again, we read the rest. So let's move on to verse 26, where it says, and Laban said to Jacob, what have you done that you have stolen away unknown to me and carried away my daughters like captives taken with the sword? Verse 26, we have an example in 1 Samuel 30, verse 2. And had taken captive the women and those who were there. From small to great, they did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. Very different story, very different context. This is what later on with Saul. However, I do want to say that it is the same way that Laban saw Jacob's doing by taking away his family. He saw it as taking his daughters captive, though his daughters actually viewed him as the captor, meaning Laban, not Jacob. So interesting. All right, so verse 28, where it says, and you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in doing so. I have some connections here. Genesis 31, verse 55, we see that we just read that he actually did kiss his daughters and sons afterwards. And early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned to his place. So we see that later on, he was given that opportunity. Ruth 1, 9 and 14, the Adon grant that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Okay, so this is just to see that the kissing, in this case, their husbands had died, and so they're kissing away, like Orpah was kissing her mother-in-law. It's almost like as a blessing, like, I'm departing from you now. So same example, in 1 Kings 19, verse 20. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, please let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you. And he said to him, go back again, for what have I done to you? So again, an example of kissing father, mother, kissing relatives, sons, daughters is just saying goodbye with a blessing. Acts 20:37, another example in the New Testament. And then they all wept freely and fell on Paul's neck and kissed him. This is right before they knew Paul was going to end up dying in Rome. 1 Samuel 13:13. And Samuel said to Saul, you have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Adon, your God, which he commanded you. For now the Adon would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. And this is just a usage of the word foolishly that we find here in verse 26. Where is it? No, is that verse 26? Verse 29, 28. Oh, verse 28, sorry. And you did not allow me to kiss. No, now you have done foolishly in so doing. That's what I was connecting with. Sorry. Okay. Oh my gosh, I have all my notes mixed up on my phone. This is so annoying. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, here I am. Now verse 29. It is in my power to do you harm, but the Most High of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good or bad. So connecting with that, we have Genesis 28:13. And behold, the Adon stood above it and said, I am the Adon, Elohim of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. I'm not gonna read 31. I'm gonna read verse 30 now. And now you have surely gone because you greatly longed for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Okay. Verse 30 connects with Genesis 31:19. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. So we do see that Rachel had taken these idols that Laban is asking for. His gods are those household idols. That's what he was referring to. Joshua 24, verse 2. And Joshua said to all the people, thus says the Adon of Israel, your fathers, including Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, dwelt on the other side of the river in old times, and they served other gods who were angels, right? Judges 17, verse 5. The man Micah had a shrine. We had already read this one. Judges 18, verse 24. So he said, you have taken away my gods, which I made, and the priest, and you have gone away. Now, what more do I have? How can you say to me, what ails you? Genesis 26, verse 7. And the men of the place asked about his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say she is my wife, because he thought, lest the men of the place kill me for Rebekah, because she is beautiful to behold. Give me 1 second, guys. This actually connects with verse 31. I'm sorry. Verse 31, where it says, then Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. So that's just connecting with that. And also Genesis 32, verses 7 and 11. So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hands of my brother, from the hands of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me and the mother with the children. So we're gonna see this next week, but this is basically the reunification of the brothers, and we see that he also is afraid then. Now, connecting with verse 32, with whomever you find your gods, do not let him live. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have of yours and take it with you. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Genesis 44, verse 9. With whomever of your servant it is found, let him die, and we also be my Lord's slaves. And this is later on with Joseph. So we see a similar foreshadowing things. Exodus 20, verse 12, connecting with verse 35, actually. And she said to her father, let it not displease my Lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is with me. And he searched, but did not find the household idols. Verse 35 connects with this one. Exodus 20, verse 12, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Elohim, your God, is giving you. Leviticus 19:32, you shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man and fear your God, for I am the Adon. This is just bringing up that she was lying. She wasn't honoring her father, even though she was taking the idols from him. She still lied. She should have just given them back to him. Exodus 22, verse 10, if a man delivers to his neighbor a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any animal to keep, and it dies, is hurt, or driven away, no one seeing it, I left it halfway. But basically, yeah, I forgot why I was putting that there. Oh, I continue it here actually. Yes, verse 11. I broke it down into okay. Then an oath of the Adon shall be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods. That's a part I was trying to make, but the point I mean. And the owner of it shall accept that, and he shall not make it good. But if in fact it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution of to the owner of it. It is if it is torn to pieces by a beast, then he shall bring it as evidence, and he shall not make good of what was torn. And obviously, this is later the commandments that the Most High starts giving specific laws that the Most High gives Moses to tell the people when it comes to stealing things, which is what Rachel was doing with her father's gods, idols. Connecting with verse 39. Yes, 39. Actually, no, not 39. I already read that one. Oh, so 39 actually connects with the Exodus scriptures that I just read, where it says, that which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hands, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. So the the Exodus connection was that. Now, verse 41, this is where I'm at. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. I'm not gonna read the connections for that because you already know that. I'm just gonna go back and where that is found in scripture. So let's go to verse 42. Unless the Elohim of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. So a few connections here. We have Genesis, no, I'm gonna go to Psalms 124, verses 1 through 2. If it had not been the Adon who was on our side, let Israel now say, if it had not been the Adon who was on our side when men rose up against us. Genesis 31:53, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judged between us, and Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. We also have Isaiah 8:13. The Adon of hosts, him you shall hallow. Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. Genesis 29:32. So Leah conceived and bore a son. So she called his name Reuben. So for she said, the Adon has surely looked on my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. We already did that study, so you know what's up with that. Exodus 3:7. And the Adon said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. We also have 1 Chronicles 12:17. And David went out to meet them and answered and said to them, if you have come peaceably to me to help me, my heart will be united with you. But if to betray me to my enemies, since there is no wrong in my hands, may the God of our fathers look and bring judgment. Very similar situation with David there, and with what was happening with Laban and Jacob. And so now connecting with verse 44, now therefore, come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. And again, I'm going to go back in Genesis to see about these covenants. Genesis 21, 27 and 32. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. That's the first time I believe we see in scriptures the two men making a covenant, right? Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. So Abimelech rose with Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. We also see in Genesis 26, verse 28. But they said, we have certainly seen the Adonis with you. So we said, let there now be an oath, which is the same as a covenant between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you. And this is later with, I believe, Isaac and the other Abimelech Jr. Joshua 24, verse 27. And Joshua said to all the people, behold, this stone shall be a witness to us, for it has heard all the words of the Adon which he spoke to us. It shall therefore be a witness to you, lest you deny your God. So we see again the use of stones being used as witnesses. And again, by no coincidence, because we know Messiah is referred to as the chief cornerstone, right? And as well as Israel is identified later on by precious stones. So I don't believe by coincidence, but they would used stones as witnesses, stones also as a place to do a covenant with the Most High, as Jacob did. Verse 45. Oops, what did I do here? I don't know what I just did. Anyway, can you guys see my screen? Because I think nope. Give me 1 second. I split my screen, so I'm gonna have to do it like this. Okay. Verse 45. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And this is just two connections here with the pillars. I hate that I did this. Hold on. What the heck? I don't know what I'm doing here. Give me 1 second, guys, because I feel like I don't know how to bring this back to the other screen because it's not letting me share it now. Oh, is it here? Okay. No. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to figure this out. I split like all the windows. Okay, there we go. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. So connecting with that verse, 45 that we just read, Genesis about the stones. One second. Genesis 28:18. Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put up at his head, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. As well as in Joshua 24:26 through 27. Then Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of the Most High, and he took a large stone and set it up under the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Adon. And Joshua said to all the people, behold, this stone shall be a witness to us, for it has heard all the words of the Adon which he spoke to us. It shall therefore be a witness to you, lest you deny your God. Interesting how he's using a stone as a witness, and he says, for it has heard all the words that the Adon spoke to us. I mean, I don't know, guys. I think that's just more than foreshadowing. There's a connection there with stones, with Messiah. I don't know. That's just me. Now, back to connecting. Let me see if it's sharing my screen correctly here. Oh my gosh. I think it's actually showing everything, right? Yeah, I think so. All right. So connecting now, verse 53. No. Verse 49. Yeah, verse 49. Also Mizpah, because he said, may the Adon watch between you and me when we are absent one from another. And we just have a couple connections here. I hate that this is all not organized how I have it. Gosh. Where is my other page? It's not it. Here it is. Okay, no, I'm sorry. So connecting with verse 49, we have Judges 10:17. Then the people of Ammon gathered together and encamped in Gilead, and the children of Israel assembled together and encamped in Mizpah. Judges 11:29. Then the spirit of the Adon came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah. That's just showing the place, connecting with the place, okay? 1 Samuel 7:5 and 6. And Samuel said, gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Adon to you. So they gathered together at Mizpah, drew water and poured it out before the Adon, and they fasted that day and said there, we have sinned against the Adon. And Samuel judged the children of Israel at Mizpah. So just showing you there the same connections that we just read in verse 49. Now connecting verse 53. Okay. Verse 53. Then the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judged between us and Jacob, and Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. So just a few Genesis connections here. Genesis 16, verse 5. Then Sarai said to Abram, my wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Adon judged between you and me. Genesis 21, verse 23. Now therefore swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me, with my offspring, or with my posterity, but that according to the kindness that I have done to you, you will do to me, to the land in which you have dwelt. And lastly there, Genesis 31, verse 42. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. And again, this is the same chapter. Alina is saying also, when you mentioned stones, it reminded me of the 10 Commandments. Yes, that were written on 2 tablets of stones. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is a great connection with the stones. And interestingly, how Joshua was saying that the stones would bear us a witness to the word spoken about his law. So that is pretty cool there. Pretty cool observation. Now connecting with verse 55. Let me go down here. I think that's not wrong thing. Sorry. There. Verse 55, this is the last one. And early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his place. So last connections here, Genesis 29, 11 and 13. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Then it came to pass when Laban heard the report about Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. So he told Laban all these things. Genesis 28, verse 1. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Genesis 18:33. So the Adon went his way as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Genesis 30:25. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. The same country that we just read here in Genesis 18. Numbers 24:25. So Balaam rose and departed and returned to his place. Balak also went his way. That's just, I don't even know why I added that. It's just, I mean, the context is not the same, but let's just now recap everything with the slides. And I tried my best to, let me move this out of the way, to recap this in a very condensed way because this was a very long chapter, okay? So verses 1-3 is the return. Jacob begins hearing Laban's sons complain. Jacob has taken away all that our fathers, and of that which our fathers has, he got all the glory. So we're seeing here that they're looking at Jacob's increase and becoming jealous. That's basically, bottom line, what's happening here. But we notice something important. They are interpreting Jacob's blessing as though Jacob had taken something from their father, right? In Psalms 49:16, it reminds us that we are not to be afraid when one is made rich, for the glory of his house is increased. Jacob didn't need to steal Laban's blessing. The Most High had blessed Jacob despite Laban's attempts to control him. And in verse 2, we saw that Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as it was before. So Laban's attitude clearly had changed. And Jacob recognizes that staying is no longer wise because there was like beef, right? So then the Most High speaks, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. And we know that this is huge. It's important because the Most High is not giving Jacob a completely new promise. It was the same promise that he had given him from the beginning. He reminded him of the promise that was found in Genesis 28:15, I am with you, and in 31:3, I will be with you. So the circumstances changed, Laban changed, Jacob changed, but the promise did not change. The Most High is now calling Jacob back to the land he promised to Abraham and Isaac. From verses 4 to 9, we see the Most High was the one blessing Jacob. He tells them, your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but the Most High suffered him not to hurt me. And we know that this is important because Laban repeatedly tried to manipulate Jacob's circumstances, but he could not control the outcome. The Most High was placing boundaries around what Laban could do. And we see that connection with Job 110, where even Satan recognizes that the Most High had placed a hedge around Job. It also connects with Psalms 105:14, where he says that he suffered no man to do them wrong. And in Psalms 37:28, where it says the Most High loves judgment, but forsakes not his saints. So Jacob is beginning to recognize something. His increase did not come from Laban. It came from, obviously, the Most High. So Laban changed Jacob's wages. The Most High changed the outcome. Verses 10 through 13, Jacob explains that the Most High showed him in a dream which animals would become his. Then the angel of the Elohim speaks, Jacob, and I said, here I am. This language takes us back to earlier encounters where Abraham answered, here I am. The Most High is personally directing Jacob. Then comes one of the most important statements in the chapter. I have seen all that Laban does unto you. And the Most High saw everything, every unfair wage, every difficult night, every hardship, every attempt to take advantage of Jacob. Nothing was hidden. So this connects strongly with Exodus 3:7. I have surely seen the affliction of my people. Remember, I said it was like a foreshadow. The same pattern begins here with Jacob and later becomes Israel's story. The Most High sees the affliction of his people. He is not unaware, and he was definitely not absent. He was always watching, continues to watch. And when the appointed time comes, he acts. Verses 13 through 16, we see the return. The Most High reminds Jacob, I am the Elohim of Bethel. This takes Jacob back to Genesis 28, where he first encountered him while leaving the land, which we know this is the Adon that he had encountered. So 20 years later, the Most High is reminding Jacob, I am the same one who was with you then, I am still with you now. He tells Jacob to return to the land of his fathers. Rachel and Leah agree, recognizing that their father has not treated them fairly and saying, whatsoever the Most High has said unto you, do it. Jacob isn't simply deciding to leave Laban. The Most High is calling him back home. Verses 17 through 21, we see that Jacob actually leaves back to Canaan, or begins his route back, right? So Jacob takes his family and everything the Most High has given him and begins the journey back to Isaac and Canaan. This is significant because Jacob is returning toward the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and now to him. But there is one problem. Obviously, Jacob is leaving Laban's house physically, but something from Laban's house is still coming with him. And we're going to see the problems that creates later on. Verse 19, and this is where we bring in the book of Jasher. Rachel and the Teraphim, which is the idols, right? So Rachel secretly takes her father's household's idols. Genesis doesn't tell us exactly why she took them, but Laban clearly considers them his gods. As we saw in verse 30, that he says, but why did you steal my gods, right? In the book of Jasher, it gives additional understanding concerning these images and connects them with Laban's idolatrous practices and divination. We can use that as a background, but Genesis remains our foundation clearly. What's important is what this foreshadows. Rachel is leaving her father's house, yet she is still carrying something from that house. Later in Genesis 35, verse 2, Jacob will command his household, put away the strange gods that are among you and be clean. So we see the progression. In Genesis 31, the idols are carried away. In Genesis 35, the idols are put away. The Most High is not only bringing Jacob's family out of Laban's house, he is also teaching them to separate themselves from its idolatry. And this connects with Joshua 24:2, where we learn that Abraham's ancestors also served other gods. And I also want to add that this connects with the whole story of Israel. First in the Exodus, right? When they depart from Egypt, they're taken through the wilderness, but they're leaving Egypt, but now in the wilderness they have to be cleansed because they still carry Egypt in their hearts. And in the same way, fast forward to us today, we are in spiritual Egypt. So when we come to our Father and enter into his eternal covenant, right, we become part of the grafted in Israel, we become part of Israel by being grafted into the tree, right? We now have to leave the ways of this world, the patterns of this world, which are still within our hearts. So it's the same pattern. And we see it clearly there with Rachel carrying the gods of Laban with her. Verses 22 through 24, we see that Laban pursues Jacob. Laban discovers Jacob has fled and goes after him. But before Laban can do anything, the Most High warns him in a dream. Take heed that you do not speak to Jacob either good nor bad. This is another reminder that Laban may pursue Jacob, but he cannot cross the boundary that the Most High has established. And this begins one of the strongest foreshadows in the chapter, meaning Jacob's escape from Laban and later Israel's exodus from Egypt, like I was saying. So Jacob leaves an oppressive household, take his family and possessions, is pursued by his former master. The Most High intervenes. Israel will later leave Egypt, take their families and possessions, be pursued by Pharaoh, experience the Most High's intervention. And it's the same way we do it today, right? It's the same foreshadow. So the language of Genesis 31:22 through 25 closely parallels to Exodus 14:5 and 8. And Jacob's story is becoming a smaller picture of the Exodus that will come later. And again, the second Exodus that will come in our days. So verses 25 through 35, see how I'm condensing all of it real quick. Laban confronts Jacob here. So Laban catches up with Jacob and demands to know why he left. Jacob explains that he was afraid Laban would take his family by force. Then Laban asks, why do you steal my gods? Jacob doesn't know Rachel has taken the Teraphim. Rachel hides them and Laban doesn't find them. The bigger issue here is that idolatry is still present within Jacob's household. This will eventually have to be dealt with. Jacob finally speaks. So we see now through verses 36 through 42 that he finally tells Laban everything he has endured over the past 20 years. That he had deceived him, that his wages were changed repeatedly, that he endured heat and cold, that he carried responsibility for the flock. He worked 14 years for Laban's daughters and 6 more for his livestock. But Jacob's conclusion is what matters the most. Except the Elohim of my father had been with me, surely you have sent me away now empty. Jacob understands where his blessings came from, not Laban, not his own strength, but the Most High. And again, he says, Elohim has seen my affliction. So this connects directly with Exodus 3, verse 7. I have surely seen the affliction of my people. So Jacob's personal experience is becoming a pattern for Israel, and the Most High sees the affliction of his people and intervenes. And that goes still for us today. Verses 43, lastly, through 55, we see the covenant and the stones, like Alina was sharing. Jacob and Laban make a covenant and establish a heap of stones as a witness. Jacob and Laban make a covenant and establish, I said that again, wait. Jacob calls it Galid, a heap of witness. The stones mark a boundary between them. Laban will not cross toward Jacob, and Jacob will not cross toward Laban. And this connects with later covenant memorials, especially in Joshua 24:27. Behold, this stone shall be a witness unto us. Then Laban says, the Most High watch between me and you when we are absent one from another. They can't see each other anymore, but the Most High can. So the chapter ends with Laban returning home and Jacob continuing toward Canaan. The Laban chapter is finally over. All praises, I'm sure Jacob was saying, right? Time to move on. So looking ahead into next week in Genesis 32, let's make the connection already. This is where the chapter becomes a perfect bridge into the next one. Jacob has escaped Laban, but now he has to face Esau. That's the next chapter. The Most High has delivered him from one difficult situation, but Jacob still carries fear from his past. Genesis 31 teaches us that the Most High was with Jacob while he was suffering. And Genesis 32 will show Jacob learning that the Most High is also with him when he has to face what he fears. And here's the big picture. Jacob leaves Laban's house. He is pursued. The Most High protects him. He establishes a boundary and he continues toward the promised land. It's another reminder that, and that goes for us today, the Most High doesn't always remove the journey. He promises to be with us through it. Jacob left Canaan 20 years earlier with a promise: I am with you. And I feel like I'm speaking to someone with this tonight. So now he is returning with proof that the promise was never forgotten. And the next thing awaiting for him is Esau. And so to be continued, I'll see you again next week, chapter 32. Thank you for breaking bread with us. I tried my best to condense all of this. This was a very long chapter, but a very important one nonetheless. Like I said, it connects, it's a bridge moving forward to now Israel becoming. Because Jacob, we're going to see later on how his name is changed to Israel. And so this is just the beginning. So, yes, Alina is saying, in every wilderness, Messiah is with us. Absolutely. I mean, and with that, I stop this share and I end this study. Thank you for connecting once again, and I will see you all next week. I just realized how close I was to the camera the whole time. Bye.